Western Reserve University School of Medicine in Cleveland, Ohio. This is the All Access Med School Admissions Podcast. Hello again, everybody. I'm your host, Christian Essman, and I'm the Senior Director of Admissions and Financial Aid here at CASE. Thanks for joining me, and it is a pleasure to be with you again. If there's a med school that you'd like to hear on this show, then please email me at allaccess@case.edu. That's allaccess@case.edu. This episode is a perfect example of how listener suggestions help me get more med schools to you. I can't tell you how many emails I've received asking to hear about WashU, so I'm really happy to finally be able to deliver this one to you today. Speaking of email, I received a really nice email recently from a listener at UCLA. I want to read you a portion of it. They write, I want to take a quick moment to thank you for creating the All Access podcast and for injecting a spirit of optimism and levity into each of your various discussions. Seeking out and scheduling guests, recording and editing audio, publishing on multiple platforms, and maintaining a web portal must take an enormous amount of time and energy. I'm not sure what you get out of it other than the occasional nice email, so I figured that the least I could do was draft such an email and send one out to you. That is a very flattering email to receive. It really warmed my heart and made me feel really good. But the listener's right. I'm a one-man show putting all this together, and the production of each episode can take a fair amount of time, but I've picked up a few shortcuts along the way. Anyway, so what do I get out of this? I get a lot of satisfaction in sustaining this project, knowing that I'm bringing you possibly the most accurate and reliable information and advice. I get so excited when I book a guest because I know these are the people reading applications, sitting in admissions committee meetings, and working with our pre-health advisor partners. I mean, these are the pros, man. I also really enjoy the creative outlet that this podcasting hobby has become. I've learned an awful lot in putting all this together and gained some new skills, which is cool. The bottom line is, this is really just fun for me, and I'm so glad that people are finding this to be a helpful resource in their pre-med journey. So I really do appreciate that kind of note. Okay, one more thing. I want to pass along another one of those virtual fair opportunities where you can interact with a lot of different medical schools and their admissions reps. This one is the AAMC's Minority Student Medical Fair, and it's coming up on Friday, November 20th. You'll find a link in the show notes to the registration site, and best of all, it's free. The organizers say that while the focus is on supporting individuals from diverse and underserved communities, they welcome participation of all high school and college students interested in medicine. So all are welcome. Check it out. You'll find us there too. Okay, let me tell you about my guest today. Matt Taitt serves as the Director of Admissions at the Washington University School of Medicine in St. Louis, Missouri. Matt joined the WashU admissions team in 2018. He oversees recruitment and application processing and interviews for all MD applicants. He is passionate about higher education and helping students navigate the admissions process, so he's come to the right place. Prior to joining WashU, he served as Assistant Director of Operations in the Admissions Office at St. Louis University. Matt began his career in higher education at Southern Illinois University in Carbondale, Illinois, where he was the Assistant Director of Admissions. Matt earned a bachelor's in economics from SIU in 2003, and upon graduation, he worked in the tourism industry teaching scuba diving, which we talk about a little bit in our conversation, until he returned back to Carbondale, where he completed his Master's of Public Administration degree. All right, now here's a little bit of background on the medical school. The Washington University School of Medicine is located in St. Louis, Missouri, just a few miles from downtown along the mighty Mississippi River and the famous Gateway Arch National Park, which is beautiful, by the way. The medical school has been in St. Louis since 1891, and the mission of the Washington University School of Medicine is to lead in advancing human health through the best clinical care, innovative research, and the education of tomorrow's leaders in biomedicine in a culture that supports diversity, inclusion, critical thinking, and creativity. WashU's School of Medicine is solely dedicated to medical education and is located at the heart of the 230-acre Washington University Medical Center. The Farrell Learning and Teaching Center provides a state-of-the-art facility in which to learn the compassionate delivery of scientific medicine. This facility complements the outstanding clinical resources at Barnes-Jewish Hospital and at St. Louis Children's Hospital, two of the top academic hospitals in the country. Learning among the most talented classmates in the country and in the world-class facilities, medical students at Washington University enjoy a supportive and non-competitive environment where opportunities for discovery, learning, and self-fulfillment abound. They are a private institution and accept applications from all U.S. citizens, international applicants, including Canadians, and those with the DACA status. For the entering class of 2020, the WashU received 4,550 applications and interviewed 1,140 applicants for a class size of 104, which included 84 MD students and 20 MD PhD students. 61% of the 2020 entering class were comprised of women, and 24% self-identified as underrepresented in medicine. Okay, let's jump into it right now with Matt Taitt, so enjoy. Hey, Matt, it's great to have you here. This is cool. That we've known each other a little bit now, and welcome to the All Access Show.
Thanks, Christian. It's great to be here. We've known each other for a couple of years. I've been a fan of the show, so it's great to be on. Yeah.
Long-time listener, first-time caller. Well, that's cool. That's flattering. Well, no, really, this WashU has been. I get emails from listeners, and I get a WashU email probably once a week sometimes. And so when I asked you and you're like, yeah, I'd totally love to come, I'm like, finally, yes. So this is, I think there's going to be a lot of satisfied listeners out there. So before we get into everything WashU, I always like to give a little background, and I already read your bio sketch in the prior to, our conversation here. So our listeners already heard that, but to kind of fill in the gaps a little bit about who you are and kind of humanize the Matt Taitt, so how did you get into higher ed? Like what motivated you to make that turn?
Yeah, so that's a good start. That from what I mentioned in my bio, that I graduated college and ran off and taught scuba diving. That I get questions.
Who did that?
I went down to Florida for a while. I did my instructor training in the Florida Keys and lived in a couple different spots in Florida for a while, teaching and taking students out on the ocean. It was great. I get questions all the time, and I'm sure you do as well, about what to do for a gap year. And I don't always have the right answer, but I can certainly tell students what not to do. And teaching scuba is probably on the list of things not to do for a gap year. But
why?
Well, there's a secret to scuba diving, that if you want to make a small fortune in scuba diving, you really need to start with a large fortune and work your way down.
Okay.
And I was right out of college, didn't have any money, and was going in debt at the time to try to teach students and live in Florida. So I gave that up. Originally from Illinois, moved back to Illinois. Mm-hmm. My undergrad degree was in economics. So I got a job at a bank and was working in consumer lending and thought that's what I was supposed to do. And I really just found it to be a little boring. It just wasn't right for me. And the thinking about when I was happiest in my, at that point, brief work history was really when I was working on campus. Worked full-time as a student on campus in our registrar's office. So I was happy to go back as an admissions counselor. And that was, I guess that was 2007. So started in counseling and recruiting, worked my way up, and just really enjoy helping students navigate the higher education process and the admissions process. It's complex. Thinking back to my time going through that process going to college, I don't know that I had the right guidance and support. So that was something I always wanted to be able to offer students, to be able to help students achieve their goals. And it's great. I was at Southern Illinois University, Carbondale from, I guess, 2007 till when I left in 2014, and then was at St. Louis University.
So then you found that job at SLU and then moved to St. Louis?
Yeah, found the job at St. Louis University. Also helped my partner Rebecca was living in the city of St. Louis at the time, so it made for a good transition. And then moved over to WashU School of Medicine 2 years ago.
Yeah, that's awesome. So tell me, what do you like about, now that you've been in the med school admissions side for a while? What do you like most about what you get to do every day? By far, it is 100% about the students that we get to interact with. That both our applicants that are applying to WashU as well as our current students are amazing. And I've had interactions, lots of student interaction throughout my career, but it's at a much different level and than at WashU than what I've experienced elsewhere. And to be able to get to know these students who are just amazing people and are going to very likely change medicine at some point. It's just inspiring every day to get to know these people. Yeah, we get to meet a lot of people. That's like the jobs that we do. We get to meet a lot of people. When people meet you, what's something they're surprised to learn about you?
I would say something that people that are surprised to learn about me would be anyone that's been around me for any length of time knows that I am horrible at any sport that you name. Baseball, basketball, football, just not a very traditional. I love watching, just not very good at playing. But non-traditional, or what I would call non-traditional sports. So talked about scuba diving. I love cycling. Spend a lot of time on my bike, and for whatever grace I lack, just walking around. I can't walk and chew gum to save my life, but love being on a bike and the excitement that brings.
Yeah, well, that gets to like my last question before we get into the curricular things. What do you? So St. Louis is not your hometown. You moved there a few years ago. So what do you like to do in the Lou?
Yeah, St. Louis is a great city. I love the move. I grew up in a very small town of less than 700 people. So to be in the city of St. Louis, and I've lived in the city the entire time I've been here, just love it. It's an amazing food culture. We enjoy eating out all the time, or at least prior to the pandemic, we enjoyed eating out all the time. Great food scene with pretty much any type of ethnic food that you might be looking for. It's St. Louis is known to be the home of Anheuser-Busch, but it's also a great scene for microbreweries. So it's just some amazing food and drink going on. But I love being out on my bike. That St. Louis has a pretty well-developed network of greenways and protected bike lanes. So I love biking throughout the city. I bike to work every day and just spend as much time on the greenways as I can.
That's cool. I mean, we were just, before we hit record, we were just saying we were there. I visited St. Louis. We had a meeting, and I can attest the food there was good. I went to Pappy's barbecue place.
Oh, Pappy's is good. Yeah.
That was a religious experience. and I can attest to some of the breweries. I went with a buddy of mine and we checked out some of the microbreweries there. Just great stuff. And I find St. Louis is about the same size as Cleveland. And so I felt like a similar size of city. It wasn't too overwhelming, but it seemed to have a lot of the nice amenities that a big city like a Chicago or DC or New York can offer.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. That St. Louis, in many ways, is kind of more reminiscent of a large town than a city. That it has that feel and that community. I think probably very very similar to Cleveland. That we're a Midwest city, so you really get that Midwestern hospitality. People are typically genuinely going to be happy to help people around town and look out for one another.
Yeah, good stuff. Well, hey, let's jump into the highlights of WashU and particularly let's start with the curricular highlights. We have a lot to talk about here a little bit because you guys have been working hard the last couple of years in kind of redesigning your curriculum. And so my understanding is that this was you rolled out your new Gateway curriculum this year with the entering class of 2020. So let's start with that. What's different? What's different? Why is it called the Gateway curriculum? Tell us the highlights.
Yeah, so this was the first curriculum revision, in at least 25 years, and maybe the largest curriculum revision in the school's history. So prior to Gateway, we were a very traditional 2+2 of 2 years of preclinical work and then 2 years of clinical work, and students went on to residency, of course, at that point. And we had some great success. Great students came out of that program, but trying to rethink of how we needed to change our curriculum to meet the needs of students and learners as we move into this next phase. The Gateway curriculum. Well, I guess let's start with why it's called Gateway. So St. Louis is known as the Gateway City, the gateway to the West. Was really kind of the home of Lewis and Clark before they made their journey out west, which for anyone that's ever driven through St. Louis or flown by St. Louis, you'll have seen the iconic Gateway Arch. Yeah. So a lot of Gateway references. So the Gateway curriculum is completely different than what we've had before. We've moved to, still it's a 4-year MD program, but it's divided into 3 phases and really built around the best principles from pedagogy and neuroscience and how students learn, so that it is a helical learning experience to where we're going to teach students what they need in the classroom. They may be on, clinical science or basic science, and then they're going to have that experience in a clinical setting to where they're going to have a deeper understanding, and then they're going to come back to a classroom experience and be able to have some reflection time on those experiences. So it's constantly building on itself and allowing students to not only gain new knowledge, but apply that knowledge and understanding throughout their curriculum or throughout their time as a student.
What about, so big changes occurred. There's large differences. How is it delivered now? Is it a small group? Is it a lot of lecture? Is it PBL kind of learning?
It is really all of that. So, and of course, the pandemic has changed a lot of what we had planned, but it is still some lecture. It is still group. It is still some flipped classroom, and trying to use the best technology to present the curriculum in a really authentic way. So that students have a on-campus experience. They have some learning at home, depending on what days of the week. So it's where we're at now is not where we thought we would be, of course, when we set to implement this curriculum, but no one is where they thought they would be at right now. Yeah. But giving students the best experience that we can with in-person small groups, so that students can learn in a safe environment, and then also still have lessons online and doing different lectures and material ahead of time. So some flipped classroom in there as well. And we've been working not just on the curriculum, but also on the learning space on campus as well. Really redesigning some classroom space and learning spaces to take advantage of what the curriculum has to offer, and to be an asset to the students.
One thing I was reading about, which you guys have a great website, by the way, it's beautiful. When the students, so they're in the first 2 years, they're doing some in classroom, flipped classroom, and then they're doing some immersive experiences. When they go to the 3rd and 4th year, any big changes there?
Yeah, so with the what we call phase 1 really encompasses the first 18 months of their learning path. And in that path, they will start working in a clinical environment, that immersive environment, really sometime after January of their first year. So getting them into the clinical setting earlier, so that they understand what it means to be part of the medical team. Then moving on into phase 2 of the curriculum, which is a more gets into some of what students think of those traditional clinical clerkships. Certainly still being able to have those experiences throughout the WashU School of Medicine campus, it consists of Barnes Jewish Hospital, the St. Louis Children's Hospital, and Siteman Cancer Center, before they move on into their phase 3, which is our gateway to specialization and preparing students for residency. I think one of the great changes that have come about this through this curriculum is our Explore program. And Explore is something that runs throughout all 3 phases of the curriculum. Explore is a focus on how WashU defines the academic physician. Because, right, students that come to medical school, we want them all to be great clinicians working with patients. But it's a way that students can then explore other interests. So some of that interest may be in medical student education. Students that want to, work at an academic hospital setting and teach. One option may be advocacy and global health. Students that want to be a part of, changing the course of healthcare or changing healthcare policy. We have students that want to use Explore to find additional research opportunities. So, we certainly have our MSTP, our medical science training program, but we have a lot of MD students participate in the research process as well. And it's such a large part of what our students enjoy. So the research component of Explore is there for them as well. And finally, we have some innovation options through Explore. So students that may want to do or complete a dual degree with an MD, MBA have the option to learn the business side of healthcare. We have a student group, Sling Health, that's giving students opportunities to do, active problem solving within from the hospital, finding problems physicians are facing and developing a solution, and then looking to secure venture capital to actually put those solutions into place. And what kind of doesn't get talked about in St. Louis probably enough is the Cortex, Cortex is an innovation district that is right adjacent to the School of Medicine. So it's offices like Square that does credit card processing.
Oh, wow.
Microsoft has an office there. A lot of other tech companies and biotech companies are out of the Cortex. So our students will be at meetings at the Cortex, talking to these biotech companies, and able to pitch their ideas from pretty early on in their education.
That's cool. So it sounds like Explore is a really flexible amount of time to go deep into something, or to kind of find something fulfilling they want to explore a little more.
Exactly. So everyone can. It starts in phase 1 with just kind of everyone can dip their toe in the water,
dabble in some stuff,
and find out, because not everyone's going to know right off the bat what they want to do, but you give students the opportunity to be involved, find out what they might like for research, or maybe what they like for entrepreneurship. And we have resources for students that if you want to be a student at WashU and you want to go into research, but you don't know where to start, we have an entire team of folks that are going to help students through that process and get connected with the right PI, so that someone that will share their interests and just
kind of mentor them through that. Yeah.
Mentor and coach through there. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Is there a final product they have to submit for Explore, or like they have to have a paper or something that shows that they have some kind of came to culminated to something?
Yeah, so there is a capstone project within the phase 3, which can certainly be something from Explore. But a lot of those students too that are going, as they go through that, there's dedicated time through in phase 3 where students may go on and complete other dual degrees. We talked about the MD, MBA. They may look for Master Science in Clinical Investigation or something along those lines to add to their education.
Yeah. Cool.
or public health, or lots of options there.
Yeah, it sounds like it. I mean, it really does. What about when they get to the clinical years? You mentioned the hospitals. That's got to be one of the pillars of WashU. You guys are partnered with some really powerful places. Are those the three main hospital students do their rotations in there on the WashU medical campus, or do they go to other parts of St. Louis?
So it kind of depends on the rotation, but
Okay.
by and large, our students are going to be in Barnes, St. Louis Children's, or the Siteman Cancer Center.
Okay.
Overall, the WashU School of Medicine campus, which includes all three of those facilities, we take up about 18 city blocks.
Yeah, it's big. I was impressed. It was huge.
Yeah, the nice part, though, for students, and I got to say selfishly for staff, the skywalks in between all of those facilities make it really easy and convenient. Students could be in Becker Library studying, and then be in the hospital setting within 5-10 minute walk, never having to go outside in the weather or worry anything like that. So that's great for them. And then there are opportunities throughout the city of St. Louis as well. So BJC, which is the healthcare network, or one of the largest healthcare networks here in St. Louis, has facilities throughout the city and county. So students can be at other locations for some clinical settings. So it's really just depends on what sub-I they're looking for or what they might be doing. Yeah.
When it comes to community service, I got to think that WashU students are out in the community doing stuff. Do you have a community service requirement, or students are just out on their own finding things and partnered with different organizations?
Yeah, so it's always been something that has been very important to us as an institution and to our students. Our students, I would say, really embody that sense of service, and for years have done things like our Saturday neighborhood clinic. Okay. But with the Gateway curriculum, we've really changed how we approach service and community engagement. That in designing this curriculum over the past 3 years, 3+ years, that we've had a team working in the curriculum that have been partnering with different organizations throughout the community, that we really want to be not just providing a service, but we want to provide the service that the community needs. And so really working with our partners throughout St. Louis to understand what is it that they need, and how, as a university, how as a school of medicine can we meet those needs. So our students do have requirements to complete throughout community engagement, but community engagement can take on so many different modalities. But we have, like I said, a great team of folks that are going to help students align their interest with a community need or a community partner to complete all those activities.
So it sounds like it's baked in.
It is.
It's baked in. It's not like they have to go cold call and track people down. It's baked into the curriculum, and you have people that are help.
Yeah, whether students want to be involved in flu shot clinics, or where they want to be out giving we've had students out doing COVID tracing, all kinds of different activities here. But those opportunities are plentiful, and we have lots of resources to help students along the way. At no point is a student going to have to go out and find their own activity necessarily. That it's going to be a guided process, and it's going to last throughout their career as a student, so that they are continued, again, that helical process, that they're going to be involved in phase 1. And by the time they're in their phase 3, they may be developing a more sophisticated part of that project as a student.
So it sounds meaningful. It's not just banking a few volunteer hours here and there. It's a longitudinal process that it sounds great. I'm excited. It's unfortunate. Everybody's had things disrupted in their life. You guys have been working on this for 3+ years, and then 2020 we're going to unveil it, and then we know how 2020 has been. So it didn't exactly roll out as everybody had planned, which is frustrating.
No, but my hat's off to our curriculum team and the professors, faculty, deans around campus that they've done, and they've done it in a way that is effective now during COVID, and is also in a way that is we can easily transition back to on-campus learning when that's safe to do full time.
Hey, so some other big news you guys had last year in 2019. The big news that came out of WashU was a new scholarship program. So, do you want to talk a little bit about that in case people aren't familiar with what that entails?
Yeah, happy to do that, Christian. That our dean came out and devoted $100 million to medical education over the next 10 years. So it's an investment in our students. It's an investment in, we hope in our community, because as our students go out and serve the community, that with the scholarship program, there's not a separate application process. As students are admitted to the university, we will review each student for scholarship at that point. It's all entirely separate to any type of financial aid they may be receiving. So it have been able to offer more scholarships to more students, as well as higher dollar amounts to students as well. It's been great to try to help lower that debt students have when they graduate, and hopefully that is as little or as close to zero as possible.
That's fantastic. I mean, I remember when that news came out, and we were all like, "Oh, that's so cool! What a great opportunity! What a great opportunity!" And so there's a lot of envious medical schools out there. What about what's something now that you've been there a few years now, Matt? What's been something you've been out on the kind of the recruiting trail a little bit, meeting prospective students and applicants? What's been something that you find is people that aren't as familiar about WashU that you wish they knew more about?
Christian, I think people in general in our area know us and know what the campus is about. You get a little bit farther away, and not everyone is as familiar with the city of St. Louis or with the WashU campus. I've actually heard a couple of our current students say that they really didn't even know where St. Louis was before they came here to interview. So we are, we're in the middle of the Midwest,
smack dab in the middle of the country.
Yes. So, one of the things I think that, people don't recognize is, one, Midwestern hospitality is a real thing.
It's a real thing, man.
Yeah. People are nice here. That, it's, you come to St. Louis and it's just a different feeling. It's a little more laid back, maybe a little slower, but people want to help other people. And I think that's something it's hard to express that, if you haven't been here to experience it. The other thing I will say about the area that people don't maybe realize is, we're not on the coast. We don't have a beach or palm trees, and we don't have the mountains necessarily, and some of the other places in the country do. But it's beautiful. There's lots of hiking and outdoor activities. We talked about cycling earlier. That I love being out on a bike. I love being outside in this area. There's just so much to do outdoors. Forest Park is connected to our medical campus. It is the largest urban park in the country. It's even larger than Central Park in New York's, and the zoo's free, the science center's free. Lots of trails throughout the park. So if students that are living on campus have easy access to a great outdoor recreation area.
Do most students live on campus?
So students,
do you have campus housing, or is there just a lot of apartments around there where students kind of find places to live in that right around the WashU school medicine campus or the hospital medical center campus?
It's a mixture of both. So we do have some students that will live in apartments or condos around the campus. There's plenty of options. We are in the Central West End area of St. Louis. It's what our neighborhood's called. But we also have brand new student apartments on campus that I guess they're not brand new. They've been there for 2 years now. So
that's pretty new.
still pretty new, and we're really excited about that facility for students. That all state of the art workout facilities, dance studio, all kinds of different games and areas for the students, all within this what we call the core. It's a really neat building on campus as well. So it's actually a historic building on the National Historic Registry, and it was completely redone to be able to house students. So it used to be the old Shriners Hospital on campus. So they put a lot of effort into making sure that it was, of course, up to code and all those things, but also a lot of effort to make sure that the historical prominence of the building, we kept true to that. And so it's a really neat mix of this old school, old world architecture of the hospital building with this magnificent inside that's, beautiful student apartments.
Oh, that's cool. So is this something it's a WashU property, or is it just something that it's a partner that built or, that renovated the Shriners Hospital? Yeah.
So it is property that is on the WashU School of Medicine campus, but one of our partners takes care of all the construction and management. Cool.
Yeah. Well, I think we've kind of hit a lot of the highlights. Is there anything we didn't talk about, Matt, that when you were coming into this conversation today and you knew we were going to talk about curricular things, did we touch all the bases? Or is there anything left out that we didn't talk about?
Well, I think the one thing we didn't talk about is student support. And that's, I think, a key for all medical students that, med school is going to be tough wherever students go. And I think that's something that we've done a very intentional job of making sure that our students have the support they need to be successful throughout their medical education. We have our student societies that provide access to different faculty and deans throughout campus. But we also, with the Gateway curriculum, rolled out a new coaching program. So a little different approach to advisement, to where each class coming in has a small coaching cohort that's assigned a faculty coach. That this is someone that's not grading the students. There's no assessment. They are there for student support and to make sure they're successful throughout their education, and they're going to follow that student throughout their education. So it's a great support network that leads them all the way up then to the time they're ready to start making those applications for residency. And again, that's Dean Deemer in our office has, through the Office of Education, has been nationally recognized for the work that she's done, and it's just great to be able to see students place so well on match day.
Mm-hmm. That's cool. So is the coach in addition to a student affairs dean, or has the student affairs been reimagined into this coaching model?
Yeah, so the student affairs is still going, very active in our students' lives. Dean Moscoso and her team do a great job providing wellness and taking care of our students. And the coaching is really just an addition to that. That it's an additional support system connected to the Gateway curriculum.
Well, that's great. Yeah, another layer of support. It can't hurt, and that sounds in a little different angle coming at it too, from a coaching perspective. So probably some life coaching going on too there too. So
yeah, exactly. How to handle life as a physician, right? That it's not just learning basic science or clinical science, but how to manage work-life balance as a resident or a fellow, as a physician. It can be a big challenge for some, and we want to make sure that our students are prepared for those challenges.
Yeah, that's great. Cool. Anything else before we turn the page and talk about admissions stuff?
I think we covered it. Yeah.
Yes. I feel like too, we hit really the great highlights there. So Matt, you've whet the appetite of people listening that are interested in WashU. The common question we get all the time, you get it too, is, so what are you looking for? what are you looking for in your applicant? So let's talk a little bit about your screening process. What are some of those qualities and experiences or values that is your screening applications that you guys, key in on a little bit?
Yeah. So for us, I think the phrase that I hear people talk about a lot of our faculty use is we're looking for students that are academically curious. That's and that can take so many different shapes and forms. And we get questions frequently. Do you have to have research on your resume to be accepted at WashU? And it's certainly not a requirement, and we don't require research on the application, and we don't require students to complete research while they're here as a student. We find a lot of our students have a background or a passion for research, but it's certainly not a requirement. But we're looking for applicants that want to have a genuine interest in serving others. I think that's a really important aspect of it. Physicians go into a lifelong career of service. So someone that embodies that service mentality. And there's so many different ways that students can demonstrate that. My canned response to any people that ask those things are, don't think about this as a checklist. Is really how I try to explain it. That you don't have to check the service box, and you don't have to check the research box, and then check the shadowing box. It's much more important that, at least for us at WashU, we are much more interested in the quality of the experience than the number of experiences or a specific experience. That, what did you learn about your time shadowing with a physician? What did you learn from your experience in the research lab, or whatever activity that it is? And can you tell us about that in a meaningful way?
Yeah, that's Matt. You're speaking what we've been talking about on these other podcasts. It's about the reflections, how you write about it and what you take away from it, and how you grew and how you developed. So you're right there with if people have been listening to this for a while, we keep reiterating this. It keeps coming up. It's not just one med school saying it. It's almost everybody is saying this kind of stuff. It's not, don't check. It's not checking the box. Well, so then when you're going through the screening process, how do you guys evaluate applicants? What's that kind of look like?
Yeah, so we are so for our applicants, we're going through several different stages of screening and review before an applicant ever is invited for an interview. Looking really over everything about that particular applicant. That we will have some faculty will see the entire application, so all the letters of recommendation, all the essay questions, experiences, their metrics too, but all those things within that screening. And we'll have another group of faculty who will see a very limited view. Won't see the metrics, or won't see what school they attended, but we'll be reading their essays to get to know the applicants. We try to look at each application holistically from different lenses to find out, is this applicant, are they going to be successful at our medical school? And that's and that's really what we were hoping to know from the screening process. I think it's what all medical schools want to know from the screening process. We're not, we don't want to exclude anyone. But we want to make sure we're promoting people who have the experiences and attributes to be successful, and then bringing those people to campus for interviews, or prior to COVID, bringing those people to
old days.
Back to good old days. But for faculty interviews, so we can get to know them a little better and find out more about them, and they can learn about us. And to me, it's so much about finding the right fit that, as an institution, we can pick out students that we think are going to be the best students for our institution. And they may not all want to come to WashU, and on vice versa, that there may be students who, for WashU is their dream school, or I'm sure you find this too, that with Case, that Case is the dream school for the student, but it's just not the right fit for it's really for us matching up, the students who fit well with us, and who can be successful.
Yeah. Let's go. Oh, let me ask you a couple other quick things about it when it comes to screening. How does WashU feel about medically related experiences? This comes up from time to time with applicants. Is it something that you really value? You want to see a lot of hours or clinical experiences, or is it just like we want to see a little bit?
It will depend a little bit between our MD program and our MSTP program. So it's important for students to have an idea on what direction they're going. So from the MD perspective, I can say that, back to my comments from earlier, that it's much more important to have an experience that's worthwhile and where the student has a great quality than necessarily a specific quantity of hours. Does the student understand what the practice of medicine may look like from that experience? Do they have an idea of what they'll have to do as a profession? And if they get those insights from a few shadowing hours, that's great. If they need more time to get to something where they feel like they have that depth of understanding, then that's okay. We're not going to for us, we're not going to try to put a specific number on that.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that, because I think over the next couple of years we're going to have to really be flexible with applicants, because I know, I think I saw in your secondary, I dug up your secondary application questions, and you guys ask a similar kind of, tell us how COVID's affected you. And we have a similar one, and we're reading all kinds of things like people's, their research was canceled this summer, or they had some shadowing lined up and that got, paused. And this is going to be affecting our applicants for the next couple of years. So we're going to have to be flexible and adapt, because the applicants have to.
Yeah, I completely agree that the adaptation is still ongoing, right? That, for clinical settings that have been overwhelmed with COVID, or been overwhelmed because they're taking care of non-COVID patients that can't go elsewhere, those settings may or may not be able to take shadowing experiences right now. So it's difficult, and we're getting questions from applicants: can virtual shadowing count? And prior to 2020, that really wasn't even a thing we thought about, right? And but so it's again back to that, what's the quality of the experience? And but just like you said, we want to be as flexible with applicants as we can.
Yeah, I was talking with Dr. Manda the other day. We were talking about what is virtual shadowing. I think it has different flavors. I've seen some different things online and on some of our listservs that we're both on. And I was saying, what else can we tell applicants to do? And one of her suggestions was maybe at this point, and also we got to be mindful of PPE. We don't want students trying to go out there and get shadowing, and if the PPE is an issue in their area, using up valuable PPE. I just saw a story last night that some parts of the country are going to run out of gloves, latex or nitrile gloves. So anyway, her comment was, maybe some applicants could start to set up like Zoom calls with physicians and have a cup of coffee over Zoom, and just talk to them about their career and about their reflections on what they're doing as a physician, as just kind of a way. You're not shadowing and seeing them with patients, but just having conversations. And that might be the next thing that we see.
Yeah, that sounds like a great proposal, and the students they need that exposure, but how they go about getting it's just becoming more difficult with current events anyway. Yeah.
Well, one last question before we talk about interview day stuff. You had mentioned gap years earlier, and your biggest suggestion or piece of advice was, don't try to set up a scuba business as your gap year experience. So, but how do you guys value the gap year? Are you big fans, or are you like, whatever, it's up to you?
We are not looking for anything in particular. Definitely seeing more and more students taking some type of gap year. And when students ask about that, should I apply directly out of undergrad, or should I take a gap year? It's my thought is, you as an applicant, you need to apply to medical school when it's going to be your best chance, when you're going to have the strongest resume to apply to medical school. And maybe that is right when you're coming out of your undergraduate experience. But maybe not. I think what applicants need to keep in mind is that there's a very competitive application pool out there. That we see applicants that have completed master's degrees. We've seen applicants that complete major scholarship research through Gates or through Rhodes or wherever they're Goldwater, all those different types of programs. So how do you set yourself up for success? And that if the answer is you need to take a gap year to have work experience or have additional graduate work, that may be the right answer, but I don't think there's a right answer for every student. And it's one of those things that I would highly encourage applicants to either work with their pre-health advisor or a pre-health advisor if they don't have one at their own local college or university, to kind of talk through those options, because it's so variable applicant to applicant.
Yeah, we've talked about this before with an advisor. If you don't have one, the NAAHP, I'll put links to this in the show notes. Again, we've put it in there before, but some advisors around the country will volunteer to be your advisor. And like you said, Matt, it's helpful to talk to somebody, and they can look through your resume and kind of see it, and maybe give you some advice, and maybe say, yeah, you might need to maybe take a little time, or maybe you seem to be on the right track, and applying this coming year would make sense, and see how it goes. So I'll put links to that. Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing, Christian, that I would add is, applicants shouldn't be afraid to apply more than once. It's not a one and done opportunity. And same with the MCAT. I know there's been all kinds of issues getting applicants through the MCAT this cycle, but as we move forward, I think those issues are going to be hopefully something of the 2020 and not ongoing in future cycles. But, making considerations of, should you take the MCAT again, or if you weren't successful in your first application cycle, applying again. And there's nothing wrong with that. We've had some very successful students at WashU that will tell you that they got in on their second application or the third application. And for students that are making that consideration, I think it's really important that you think about, how do you improve your application, and how long does that take?
Yep.
Is it, if you apply the first year and you don't get in, do you take 1 year off? Do you take 2 years off? And I don't think there's a right answer to that. I think it's how long does it take to improve your application to a point to make you a more competitive applicant?
Absolutely. 100%. The only time I could think it would make sense to submit an application immediately after a failed one is if the first time you submitted like super late, like you submitted, at the absolute deadlines. We were always telling people, apply early, apply early, apply early. But that's the only way I could see, like, if you submitted at the deadline, and that's going to sink you most of the time. So, but otherwise, you're right. I mean, if you're just going to turn around the same application that was unsuccessful the year prior, there's probably some stuff you got to fix or bolster a little bit before you put another one out there.
Yeah,
you're right. I've seen the same people too. Like the 1 year, it just doesn't go their way, and then they kind of retool some things. They come back, and it's a completely different application cycle, and they're getting all kinds of interview invitations and things like that. So, let's go to interview invitations. So you guys you screen the applications. You find some people that you want to meet. The interview day comes. I read that when the interview day comes, you have 2 interviews at WashU. One's a closed file and one's open file.
That's correct.
Okay, tell me a little more about that. What's the rationale, and what are you looking for in those 2 types of interviews?
Yeah, so 2 very different types of interviews. Both are going to be very standard conversational interviews. So we do not use the MMI process or anything along those lines. But the standard or open file interview, the faculty interviewing the applicant is going to have full access to the application in advance of the interview. So They will be able to read any reports from prior screeners. They'll be able to see letters of recommendation. Really, they'll have access to anything that we would know about that applicant at that point. And can ask questions of the applicant. So it's a little bit longer interview for us. That typically runs about 45 minutes, but still should be very much a conversational style. The closed file, completely different setup to where our faculty member going into the interview only knows the student's name. That's all they're going to know ahead of time. So that interview is really entirely dependent upon the connection and the conversation that the faculty and the student are able to have during what's typically a shorter session, usually 25, 30 minutes of conversation, to where the applicant has the opportunity to tell their story about themselves, why they want to go to medical school. The faculty member will certainly ask questions, probably have lots of good questions, but it's really about that connection. So taking two different perspectives, making sure that at no point is the decision just on one person. It's a collective of different people coming together to make those decisions. So we are hopefully bringing in, again, that right fit of applicants for WashU.
Are you involved in the interview day? Do applicants get to meet you? Or are you in the background, like kind of pulling the levers and things like that?
Yeah, I typically am much more in the background pulling the levers. It's one of the hard things for me about our current virtual process is that on a normal interview day, even though being in the background, having seen applicants in the lobby, in the office, being able to get to speak with them and have some of those more casual conversations, or I might see them at orientation and give them their overview. But everything's on Zoom now, so it's pretty rare to see applicants at this point.
Yeah, how's it been going? Your virtual process? Any lessons learned or things that you would tell applicants now that you have a few weeks under your belt?
I think the lesson learned is to be flexible, and that it's 2020 seems to be the year of Murphy's Law, and whatever can go wrong will go wrong. I think the applicants that are doing really well are applicants that can be flexible and kind of roll with some of those technology hiccups that happen from time to time. But I think my advice to applicants is just to be themselves, just like they would for their interview day, to not to try to present something that they're not, be comfortable on speaking with their faculty member on Zoom. Keep in mind that this is new for everyone, that well, at this point we've been doing this, I guess, for 7 months or more, but this is still different, right? And that their faculty are still going to want to get to know them through Zoom or whatever virtual process there may be. But if there are things if there are little hiccups, don't let that upset you. It's going to happen, and at least our philosophy is that we're going to work with applicants to make sure they have the best experience possible, whether that's interviews or tours, regardless of whatever technology issue may happen. We want to get it fixed, and we want to get it right for the applicants.
Yeah. I mean, these things happen, so it's just the way it is. And I think we've all talked. We have friends at different schools. We're all being very forgiving this year, whether it happens on our end or it happens on your. If your dog barks in the background or a sibling runs through the back of the room or something, it's not that big a deal.
Yeah,
we're all doing our best.
At this point, it's just 2020, and we just kind of roll with it, right?
Yeah. Any other new additions to the interview cycle this year that you want to mention?
Yeah, so a couple new things this year. Some of it is because of COVID, and other things that we had planned in advance. So we really deconstructed our interview day for 2020. Everything prior to 2020 was really all together one interview day, which I think a lot of schools take that approach, that you're on campus, applicants are on campus, they have their tour, their interviews, sessions, and then they're done. This year we've allowed our applicants to pick the day they want to come for their financial aid session. The time time they want to come for their kind of overview session with either the dean or one of our other leadership members from our committee on admissions. They can pick different days and times for their virtual campus tour, and trying to give, just be cognizant that, applicants are still having a lot of other logistical issues on their end, and try to keep things flexible for us with our application. The new thing that we were going to be really excited about that we were going to start doing this year, which we did roll out, was we decided really about this time last year to try a standardized video interview, which, with the idea being, should we explore this idea of virtual interviews? It's trying, applicants spend in a normal year spend a lot of money on travel, and once they're at WashU, we feel like we take pretty good care of them. We provide their lodging at the core apartments.
No way.
We provide 3 meals. So I've always said it's kind of like the Army. We provide everyone 3 hots and a cot by the time they get through their interview day, right? It's kind of like boot camp. But totally lost what I was going to say.
We were going with that Kira. You hadn't mentioned Kira. Yeah.
But one of the things we wanted to explore is this idea of, could we have a virtual experience? So we partnered with a company to provide that an asynchronous video interview last November. We were signing the contract. We were going to roll that out as part of this interview cycle, and then COVID hit, right?
Yeah.
So everyone's virtual, but we continued on with the process so that our applicants, in addition to the 2 virtual interviews, will also have a standardized video interview. It's very similar to what the AAMC is providing or offering applicants in medical schools this year. The difference is, when students complete our standardized video interview, they're going to be seeing questions asked by current WashU students, and are very, very specific to areas that we want to know about the applicant. So they're maybe not as generic as AAMC is trying to hit a wide swath of medical schools and provide different competencies along the way. So, but we were very, very tailored in our approach, and we hope that our applicants enjoy getting to interact, at least over video, with a little bit of some of those.
How long does it last?
I think most applicants are completing it probably around 20 minutes.
Yeah.
It's 20, 30 minutes. It's not long. Each they have plenty of time to practice ahead of time. Then they have a prompt and then they have I think it's 90 seconds to complete their answer. There is a written component, so we do give them a little more time for the written component, but most wrap it up pretty quick.
Yeah, I remember last fall we were at a meeting where you guys were mentioning this stuff, and a lot of us like, what are an asynchronous video, like a video online, like and now
everyone thought we were crazy, and now everyone's doing it. It's like,
oh my gosh. I remember being like, what are they, Kira? I don't know what they're talking. I don't know.
We partner with Kira Talent, and they provide all the technical support for us, but it's our students, our faculty asking the questions, doing the introduction. So you get a little taste of, what
that's a cool way to do that.
What it's like on campus.
Yeah. What I want to, Matt, while I have you, I want to throw in, since we're talking about interview stuff, I got a question from one of our listeners. His name's Gary, and he's at Emory University in Atlanta. And since we're talking about interviews, we can talk about this for a few minutes, but Gary says, okay, so, med schools, like our schools both interview around 1,000 students. And so with various statistics and extracurricular activities and backgrounds to interview, we invite all these, 1,000 people a year. Now that they've made it to the interview stage, do you consider them to be all in the same or even playing field? And the interview performance is the primary or even sole factor in determining admission? Or does a student's application still hold a lot of weight when the final decision is made and the interview is just one additional thing to consider? I bet a lot of people want to know this kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's Gary has a great question, and for us, I would say that it's the interview is certainly not the sole thing that makes the determining factor. But it is a large factor in the decision that once students come to campus, it's pretty much a blank slate for them to be able to express themselves and to be able to tell their story about why they're going down this path, why they want to study medicine. So it is their opportunity to shine at the point they're on campus for an interview. There's after the interview, the application is certainly still part of it, still looking at experiences and the attributes that they've presented. But it's the interview, right? That there's no coming back from a bad interview. That's you have only one chance to make a first impression, and I think it's so important to have a strong interview and to be able to tell your story, and also same advice I'd give to anyone applying for a job: make sure you know your application, because those questions are going to come up during the interview. I certainly always advise applicants that they should take advantage of any type of interview prep offered through their college, university.
Definitely.
Same with the writing center. I think that's another important piece, that to make sure applicants, have someone else look at their essays and personal statements. But the applications can still certainly come into play. But it really is important to make those connections and have a strong interview performance.
I agree 100%, Matt. The interview is certainly really important. We're looking for communication skills, the ability to interact with one another, because I think I've said it before on this podcast thing, is that, some people would say some of the best physicians are the best communicators. And so that's what we're looking for in interviews. And I was jotting some stuff down when I was, before we got on here, but we want to hear your views on medicine and healthcare. We want to get to know you beyond the application. Like you just were saying, to tell your story. You're going to have lots of opportunities at most schools, depending on how it's set up, to be able to kind of tell us more about you. And you said this earlier, we're looking for a good fit for our environment, for our learning environment. And that's important. A lot of these students can be successful at a lot of schools, but and our students, I think, or who are the faculty that are interviewing, they're the ones that know, the students they think are going to be successful and happy at our institutions. So, Gary, I think it's all important. We look at everything. I know in our admissions committee, pieces from the application are discussed, but we put it all together. These are all important data points, so it's everything.
Yeah, I think the thing for Gary and for all applicants to remember is that no one is just one piece of data. No one is just a test score, or a GPA, or an experience. It's all of it.
Well said.
It's a holistic approach to finding that right fit.
Yep. Well said. I guess then with a couple questions about your admissions committee process, more so, I think a lot of applicants want to know what happens if they're not accepted right away. And they have this, WashU is their first choice, and when they came and visited you, or they had their virtual interview day and they fell in love with WashU. If they're on your wait list, do you want to hear from them? Do you accept updates? Do you like to get letters of intent or letters of interest? How do you guys feel about that?
Yeah, so for us, we love seeing those updates. We want the letters of intent to know that a student is interested in us, and it gets back to that question of fit that we were just talking about. I think that is certainly still holds true, or maybe even more true when we get to the wait list. That as we look to make offers from someone to someone on the wait list. We want someone that that wants to be at WashU. So whether you are an applicant that's been accepted or whether you are an applicant that's on the wait list, definitely encourage them to consider sending us updates, especially if you're completing new research, if there's something new on your resume. It's great to check in. If maybe there's not a new resume item or a CV item, but you just want to express that letter of intent, that's great too. And because we really want to know that. And our dean for admissions, Dr. Ratz, she is going to read each and every one of those. So definitely send them.
She's fantastic. She's a great person.
Absolutely.
I mean, I would agree with that. I think the setting meaningful updates. And like you said earlier, you have current students who, when they came to maybe interview, they're like, I really didn't kind of know where St. Louis was. And that's why you have to go into this process with an open mind, because you might go to St. Louis or go to Cleveland. And I've had students do the same thing, kind of like you guys, like they were blown away. They're like, oh my God, I thought I'd like it, but I left thinking, I didn't know I'd like it that much. I love the place. You went from maybe my middle tier of wish list schools to one of my top, wish list schools I hope to get into. So that's the kind of stuff you can write in these letters. Is like, I was blown away. And that means a lot. But as long as you're not writing it to every school, that's what's important. You're not saying that. I know it's desperate times, but don't write that to every place. But if you really mean that, I'd say do that kind of thing.
What I always advise students through the process, and I'm sure you do as well, is that they need to be true to themselves and whatever path that is for them. Don't try to be someone that you're not, or don't try to be at a school that's not the right fit.
Yeah. Hey, just to kind of wrap things up here a little bit, is there anything we haven't touched on before we kind of say our goodbyes, Matt, that you wanted to make sure we got across to listeners about WashU? We hit all the new things coming out about the curriculum. We talked about the interview process, touched a little bit on how admissions, how your process works after admissions committee. Anything else that when you were, getting ready to, hop on the call with me today that you wanted to talk about or share?
Yeah, Christian, the one thing I would want to add to everything else we've talked about is, as applicants go through this process, it's a competitive process, right? We know that we have far more, applicants nationwide than we do seats in medical schools. That's just a fact. But so there is high competition. But students on our campus, once they are here, once they are enrolled in class, it is such a collaborative environment. And it's one of the things that I am just constantly blown away by is how much our students want to help each other. They have that, we talked about coaching earlier, so they certainly have open doors to lots of other faculty, to faculty and both clinical and researchers throughout campus. But the collaboration amongst our students is just amazing. Going through this virtual interview process, we have so many students that want to be involved, that want to help the next class come in. We have fourth years that are, giving our virtual tours. So you have that interaction there virtually with a tour guide. We have students coming on doing panel sessions. And we're just getting ready to kick off our next series of panels with some of our first years. So applicants can get to hear what it's like to actually go through the Gateway curriculum as a student. And at this point, we have more volunteers than we can fit in a Zoom call. Not really, but it's such a collaborative environment, and always impressed at how our students want to go out and help each other.
Yeah, it's well said. Like, they kind of, everybody kind of claws their way to get there, and then once you arrive, it's like, all right, we're all in this together now. Right? We're here to help one another and learn from one another and teach one another. So that's great. What a great way to close. Before we sign off, Matt, I always like to ask my guests, any recommendations to people, listeners, whether they're your books you like to read with non-medical or medical related, or podcasts that you like, or films or activities that you tell people, you got to check this out?
Yeah. So that's, I'm kind of a podcast nerd. I have to admit. I start.
We're a very nerd-friendly podcast here, Matt.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I feel
you're in the right spot.
I feel very welcome here. But I start every morning with Up First from NPR. So I think it's a great way to start the morning and be informed with current events. So I also like as much information. I'm a little bit of a news junkie, if you will. But the one podcast series I would recommend, I'm a big John Meacham fan, and you and I were at a conference together.
He's the historian, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. So we were at a conference together last year where he spoke. So I was like a kid in a candy store listening to John Meacham, and he currently has a podcast called It Was Said, to where he will play different pieces of both historical and current speeches, and then go into some of the background of what was happening in society or politically at the time, and give a little bit of the background. So love John Meacham, love that podcast. I also, as a cyclist, I also really enjoy the Ask a Cycling Coach podcast. Which is, it's cool because it's kind of the mix of sports and sports medicine. So I was listening to an episode here recently on treating hyponatremia. So it's it gets into that sports science. So for those that like that kind of genre, highly would recommend that. Books, this time of year in October, I typically will reread Black Hawk Down. It's pretty well known in pop culture from the movie, but love the book. It's certainly again, it's history and it's a military story. It's a little bit of a tragedy, but I think it's also so much more than that. Talking about lessons learned of how that particular unit prepared, and maybe what they didn't prepare enough for, and things that they learned in hindsight that have helped future generations of in the Army and the Rangers prepare for different activities. But I think that applies to everyday life too, about thinking about what it is to be a student. Are you taking all the right steps? What is it to be a physician, or whatever environment that you're going into?
Oh, that's good. These are great suggestions. I mean, I check this stuff out too. Like, I'm a couple episodes ago, I was talking with Dr. Yee from Duke, and he recommended this book called The Butchering Art. And it's about medicine in the 1800s and surgery. And it's kind of fascinating. And it
sounds like it.
I read a little bit before I go to bed at night. I read a couple, for 20 minutes, 30 minutes till like my eyes are starting to close. But in this one now, when I'm closing my eyes, it's pretty gory. Good book. It's really interesting. It's kind of like historical fiction. It's written in an interesting way. So, but yeah, these are good. These are. I'll have to check out the John Meacham podcast. That's one that I like, that guy too. And I didn't know that he had one. So I learned from this stuff too.
Good stuff.
This has been fun, Matt. Thank you so much for doing this with me. This has been really a good time, and I think a lot of great information, and I'm so glad you were willing to come on and talk and tell us all about WashU, because it was really good info. So,
well, Christian, thanks for having me. Glad to be here. Glad to, like I said earlier, it's a long-time listener, first-time caller, and great to be here and tell the WashU story.
Yeah, well, good. I know a lot of people are going to eat this up. So thanks, man. Have a great weekend. We'll see you later.
Yeah, you too.